This episode is going to be full of budget ideas and support because prices are continuing to rise in Italy. And if you're trying to have an Italian wedding on a lower budget, this is for you. I'm going to break down how to have an Italian wedding for about 40,000 euros. Ciao, I'm Lucy. I'm an Italian wedding planner and I'm the founder of lalista.com, which is the place to go if you're planning an Italian wedding. Me and my team are there every single day serving couples that are having Italian weddings with free information. It's impartial and it's completely transparent. And our goal is that you have the most amazing time planning your Italian wedding. Okay, so this budget that I'm going to break down is for a wedding that is about 40,000 euros. And I won't lie, it's been tight to try and have everything that you would have in an Italian wedding within this budget. So some caveats. The first thing is this budget is for about 60 people. It's for a wedding that would be 3 days long, so where you rent a venue and you have it for multiple days. It assumes that you charge guests back for that accommodation and staying at your venue. It assumes that everything is all on one site, so your wedding ceremony and all of the events around it happen there, and that you're having a symbolic ceremony, so you've already legally got married at home. As I say, this is quite a tight budget to work within, and the only way that this is achievable is if you're getting really good, transparent costs from your suppliers. So that means that you're being really smart about how you get the value from them, that you're not paying any commission to any venues or planners on top of the quotes that you're being given. And even to the point where you're not paying bank fees and things when you're transferring money, you're using apps like Wise to be able to get those across without losing money. I would also just really like to say that everybody spends different things on their wedding, and they do so because you all have different priorities. So suppliers charge lower amounts than this in some cases, and much higher amounts too. This is not about what suppliers are worth. I completely support all suppliers. I am one myself and see all of the value of their work. So this to me is for good quality suppliers, and this is just a suggestion of how to spend your budget. You have to go away and see whether this is actually how you would spend your money. Okay, so let's break it down. Firstly, starting with the venue. I'm going to go for a Tuscan venue that you've got for 3 days. These can start at 8,000 euros. You can sleep 20 people in a gorgeous villa that suits weddings for approximately 8,000 euros. And obviously there are so many different types of venues, different shapes and sizes, different quality of accommodation, and they can range all the way up to 40,000 euros for the same thing. Finding that venue and getting that right first is a foundational point of your wedding planning, and then knowing that you're able to charge guests back fairly to cover that cost is how this budget is going to work. So you need to divide your 8,000 by 3 nights by your guests, see what that comes out as, see if they're happy to pay that, and then know that you're going to be covered for that venue fee. You may also want to consider off-season, so some venues, April, May and September, October, the prices are different. That is a good way to bring the venue budget down even further. And you need to consider event fees. Some venues charge for having other events. So these are just kind of to cover their cleaning costs or their extra costs that come up. These can range from a couple of €100 up to thousands. As I always say, getting super clear with your venue on all of these costs and rules before you book is another massive part of making sure your budget is accurate and stays on track. So next up, we've got the celebrant. This is going to be ideally someone that's even in your family. If you have a family or friend do this, then obviously is no cost to you, and that is a line out of your budget. If you do have a professional do it, you're looking at something between 400 to 800 euro for a symbolic celebrant. Okay, catering is a tricky one. This is where the huge cost comes in. Now, in Italy, you're looking at about, for 60 people, something between 180 and 250 euro per person now for a full Italian meal. Now, personally, I think this is still exceptional value for all of the things that you get at an Italian wedding, but obviously it's a lot and it has gone up a lot over the years. This is not somewhere that I would actually consider cutting the costs or trying to get something less expensive or cheaper. This is really important to the structure of your day, and obviously the quality of the catering is also really important too. So I'd actually just keep this budget quite high and make sure that you have a really good caterer. If you choose not to do this, there are other options you can do. There are other ways to explore having local caterers come in, do more of a scaled down and pared back meal. You can even have private chefs come in. If you've got quite a small group for your wedding, you could have a chef come with a couple of waiters and manage things that way. It's a bit more complicated and it can end up costing a similar amount once you add in all the various costs involved. Next up in my budget, I've allocated a chunk for music. So we want to have, for example, a string duo at the ceremony, PAs and mics throughout the day, every single point of the day, and a good DJ. That is what I've allocated within my budget, and that is definitely achievable. Then there's music tax. So this comes in at about €345 specifically per wedding, per event. Most of the time we pay music tax on the wedding day only, but that is up to you to make a call on with your venue. We need to think about transport. If you've chosen a venue that's in the lower end of kind of €8,000, it's probable that it's not going to sleep all of your guests. So you're going to have guests off site that you're going to need to get to your wedding. You need to get them there. I feel that that's your responsibility to make sure they get to and from your wedding. It plays a real factor on how your wedding day goes, as to how comfortable your guests are, how their experience has gone leading up to your wedding. So making sure that they just get there really smoothly and know that they can get home, to me, is a key to success. Buses are expensive. A bus that's say 28 people, which is what you would need potentially for your wedding, it could do a couple of shuttles to your wedding and a couple of shuttles home again. That would cost somewhere upwards of €800, so that's in the budget. In the hair and makeup, I've allocated just for the bride only. So caveat to this is not all hair and makeup artists will only do one person. They may have a minimum spend on the day where they need you to book more than one person, i.e. more than the bride. If you find one that will just do you, that is probably going to cost you something like £500-600 euros, and then potentially the bridesmaids could pay for themselves, so you could get around it by still booking bride plus 3 others, but the bridesmaids actually pay for their own services, potentially. I'll leave that one with you to navigate. On decor, I've actually allocated quite a lot here, €7,500, and this is because the price of everything has gone up quite a lot, and to be really honest, don't want to scare you, but it's still a bit uncertain, and I can foresee that some caterers, for example, will be adding in and putting up the prices of renting equipment, getting equipment to weddings, transporting it, that kind of thing over the years. Even if you have a signed contract, I think that this might be an area that causes some problems moving forward. So the best thing you can do is allocate a decent budget to this and know that you're going to be safe as you go forward. The budget that I've allocated would cover personal flowers, so your bridal bouquet, your bridesmaids' flowers, something at the ceremony, probably something relatively small, not kind of a huge aisle of decor and something like that. We've got ceremony chairs that you'd need, simple table florals and candles. So we're not talking big displays, we're probably spreading them out quite a lot, and we're probably using flowers that are in season, maybe less varieties of flowers, just keeping them quite similar. It's going to assume that furniture like tables, linen, crockery and glassware at a basic level are included in your catering costs, and you're not going to go wildly outside of what's offered there. There is no budget to get anything outside of the catering offering. It's going to assume that you've got menus through the table. You're not going to have one per person. You've got some nice lighting over dinner, nothing extravagant, probably some simple festoon lights, and you've got some simple lighting at the party and a dance floor. This also accounts that you've got a transport fee for the lighting and the florist, and that's all within that budget. I'm going to suggest that you even make a homemade order of service. You could make your menus, you could make your welcome note. You can get really nice things now where you buy certain assets, or you have artists even draw an asset for you for like £100-150, and then you can put these out across all of your own homemade stationery. Your welcome event, I'm going to suggest in this budget that you go somewhere else and you have a very light drinks offering. So maybe you put some money behind a bar somewhere and you invite your guests to come and have a drink with you. And ideally, that somewhere is where the majority of your guests are staying. So if you put them all in a local town, you go and have your drinks there, then you're not going to need transport to move lots of your guests around. For the post-wedding, there's no budget here for proper catering. You're going to have something like a pizza delivery come in, and you're going to do your own drinks and your own bar. I've also put in the budget some money for self-catering. So the venue that you've hired is probably self-catering, and I've allocated about €1,000 here to provide basics like some light breakfast and snack options for your guests while they're there through the stay. There's a buffer of €1,000 in here because something will go up. There is budget for photographer and videographer here, but the caveat here is the style that everybody likes is so different, and I cannot know at this point what you're gonna like and want, but I'd say that you can get a really good option at the price that I've included in this budget. There is also some planner support budgeted in here because as much as I know that you can do DIY weddings, I don't want you to. I want you to have a really calm and enjoyable experience, and I know that that only comes from having some professional support. So in this budget there is an allowance for someone like a wedding day coordinator, or a few phone calls with a planner like me, where you speak for an hour or so and you have a really good chat and you kind of get loads of advice and insight to be able to go forward and plan your wedding. Or joining something like the club, where again you've got that kind of support network from me, from couples, and all of the advice videos that go with it. So just some budget allocated to get you some level of support that just means that you're not going it alone, and you've got that expertise coming in to help you build the best wedding that you can. And finally, on wet weather, this budget assumes that the venue has its own wet weather options. So for 60 people, you don't need a huge amount of space, but you do need to have a wet weather option for each part of the day. It is most important that you have one for the dinner, but if it were to rain all day, you need to know that you can have each aspect of the day. There are some additional ways to also make this budget work. So you could potentially have an in-house planner that comes with your venue. My advice here is just to check their actual planning experience. Often they work for the venue and they've planned the weddings at the venue, but potentially they might not have some of the skills or experience that you'd want a full planner to have. So things like connecting you with other suppliers that come externally out of this. You also might want specific styling advice, and that might not be something that they specifically do or have strengths in. You could also ask your guests to contribute to some other areas of the budget. So if you are going to put on transport for everybody to and from your wedding, you could ask guests to contribute so that they pay for it, like a taxi that you've pre-booked for them. Just some watch outs on me. I know what it's like to try and save money. I had a really low budget wedding back in 2009 and we did loads of the stuff ourselves, DIY. These are the things that I learned and that I would not do again. The first thing was sourcing your own drinks. I spent ages going around supermarkets getting all of the drinks that we needed, and actually it didn't save us much money at all, and it wasted loads of time when I could have been enjoying the time in Italy with my friends and family. Made my own flowers, which was actually really enjoyable because I absolutely love flowers, but I would also say that I would have preferred to scale back on the flowers slightly and take that responsibility away from myself. The amount that I actually saved was very minimal, and I'd rather have spent a bit more money and actually had that time back. As you can see, there's a theme here, and I don't think people truly get how much you're going to want to be in that moment when you're in Italy. It's all well and good now planning and thinking, oh, we can do that when we get there. You really won't want to, and you will just want to savour these precious days that you have that are genuinely a once in a lifetime experience with your guests. Final bit of advice is don't scrimp on the big things. So I would say when you're trying to maximise your budget like this, it's better to do less things really, really well than try and do a bit of everything. I've seen firsthand what it's like when you book a certain supplier for a very, very, very low cost, and actually it can disrupt the day and it can be really disappointing for the couple. I've learned over the years and seen it from couples themselves, they would much rather have put that money into something else and made something that was really important to them really, really good, rather than have that kind of okay service from another supplier. So that's it. You will find this budget breakdown in the comments below. There is a link to the full article with the budget that I've gone through today. As always, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe or comment below and just help us reach more couples that are planning their Italian weddings. And don't forget to head to lalista.com, where we just have so much advice for you. I'll see you next time.